was, on my last cigarette butt, the last few drops of whiskey left, no money for more, and my wife and kids were gone. Pretty soon I was about to be homeless, and all I could think about was how I could get more cigarettes or whiskey to numb this pain. And rather than thinking of ideas on how I could make more money, I started brainstorming ideas on how I could find more cigarettes and whiskey without having to use money. That's just how desperate I was. So desperate to numb this pain that I decided to go out and search for cigarette butts and leftover beer cans with whatever droplets of smooth, numbing nectar that I could find. So I set out on my little mission and managed to find 2 half-empty beer cans and 5 cigarette butts that still had just enough to get me a slight buzz, enough to hold me over, I guess. But night was slowly coming, and I knew this wouldn't be enough for the rest of the days to come, especially knowing that I had a pretty high tolerance by this point. So I kept on walking around my small town, hoping to find more. And I know I look like a mess. Hell, I didn't even have shoes on. I definitely looked homeless by this point, and I know people were staring, but I didn't care. I knew all I wanted was to numb this pain, another buzz, anything to get this feeling to stop. I had been rummaging through a bunch of trash in order to find any alcohol or nicotine that I could get my hands on, and I hadn't showered for a while, so I was very well aware that I looked and smelled awful. But as time went by, I would find small butts here and there, drops here and there, but really what I was looking for was hopefully a half-empty bottle of liquor and maybe a pack with 1 or 2 whole cigarettes in it. Just something more, a bigger load than what I had been finding. But later on, just as I was about to call it quits, I saw an unfamiliar tree that I had never seen before in my town, and it was like a fork in the road because it split it, a left and a right. And on the right side of the road, I saw what appeared to be a homeless old man sitting under the tree, simply just minding his own business, eating an orange, which I found kind of odd. But on the left side of the road, there was another old man leaning on his new Mercedes-Benz, on the phone with somebody, and he appeared to look and sound busy, from what I could tell. He had a very nice suit and was holding a cigar in one hand and his phone in the other. As I got closer and approached the old man, the one that was eating an orange stood up and offered what appeared to be his last orange. Looking up at me with hopeful eyes and a smile on his face, he said, "Here, take this, son. You look like you need it more than me, and you also look like you've had better days." But in my mind, all I could think about was, I need something to numb this pain. I need a buzz or some alcohol. And that's when I looked over on the man on the right, who was already beckoning for me to come over with his finger. So I ignored the old man holding out an orange for me, and I started walking towards the man on the left. And just as I was getting closer, he was already holding out a brand new cigar lit just for me. Oh, the grin on my face couldn't have been bigger. And I asked him, "Why, sir?" And he said, "You remind me of a lot of people I've met throughout my years on this world. I'd like to say I see potential in people like you." This shocked me a little because I just saw myself as a failure. I mean, look at me. But in the moment, I didn't think that far ahead. I just kept on staring at the cigar. He moved it closer to me and said, "Here, don't be shy. I'm offering it to you. I'm sure it'll help with your problems. or anything you're feeling in this particular moment. He didn't have to tell me twice, as I took the cigar and took a big inhale. And oh man, he was right. This was exactly what I needed, and it felt so good. So much anxiety, pain, and stress relieved in just a matter of seconds. He then said, "Good, now that you're feeling better, come, take a walk with me. I'd like to talk to you about a proposal I have for you." So we started walking away from his car, deeper down the left path. And as we got deeper and deeper, I couldn't help but notice that the trees were getting thicker, and overall it was getting darker and darker around us. He then started speaking about some companies that he owned, and that he needed a candidate just like me, and that I would fit the picture perfectly. And then he said there would be a lot of money in it for me. And that's what perked up my ears and had me really listening. I then asked him, "So around how much are we talking?" And then he shot out a number of a rough estimate, and my jaw dropped. This insane amount was more than I've ever made in my entire life. This amount of money would literally solve every single problem I had, and more. And without thinking twice, I was about to say yes, of course. And then a piece of ash fell onto my toe from the cigar, and it burnt me. And it made me wince and look down at my foot to try to shake off the burning ash. And then my heart sank lower than it has ever sunk in my entire life, as I noticed this man's feet. They weren't human. They were goat hooves with fur all the way up. I then slowly looked up and looked into the old man's eyes, only to find an empty void of darkness staring back at me. I immediately yelled and ran as far and as fast as I could, all the way back to the beginning of the path, not looking back once. Oh man, I've never ran so fast in my entire life. I made it all the way back to my house, quickly sprinted in and locked all my doors and shut my windows. I'll never, ever forget this day. I'm 100% convinced that on this day, I met the devil.